And the question of will our economic systems change forever? I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But how it's going to change, I don't think we know yet. A lot of people underestimate humans, especially when we're talking about AI. I feel like humans will figure out new ways to add value to the world.
And I'm pretty encouraged there. Like, I think people who adopt AI, they're going to become enhanced in a way, and they're going to have an outsized impact on the world.
Hey, welcome back to the Next Wave podcast. I'm Matt Wolf, and I'm here with my co-host, Nathan Lands, and we are your Chief AI Officer. It is our goal with this show to keep you informed on the latest AI news, the latest AI tools, and the talk of the AI world so that you can use it in your life and your business and leverage these new technologies that are there for you to use. Today's episode is a little bit different from what we've put out so far. This time, we're doing a little bit of an Ask Us Anything episode. We went to X and asked you to send us your questions about the AI world and what you want to know and hear our opinions on. And we got some amazing questions. So in this episode, Nathan and I are going to deep dive and answer and give our thoughts on some of those questions. We talk about things like, where is AI art going? And is there room for it to get even better? We also talk about how the government and corporations and how people need to change to adapt to this new AI world that we're headed in. And we also talk about the limitations of large language models. How big can these large language models get? How powerful can they get? And we're going to deep dive and give you our thoughts on all of this in today's episode. So hang out with us and let's dive in. So the first question here comes from Vicky J over on X. She says, where do you see AI art and video going by the end of this year?
I mean, AI art, the thing is, like, a year ago, AI art was like horrible, or like a year and a half ago, like really horrible. Like, and then now it's getting to the point where it's like, okay, how is it going to get better? Like the newest, version of Midjourney is amazing. It's like, yeah. Maybe it's still, with Midjourney, I think the one challenge is it still always looks like Midjourney to me. Like, it looks very polished and it's harder to get it having like a very different style.
Right.
So maybe having more, controls over like how, like little details in the image versus now where it kind of just, produces something super beautiful, but it's not really easy to edit.
Yeah.
I think by the end of the year, you'll be able to produce images that look even more amazing than now, but you'll have way more control over how you actually edit those images, which, for commercial uses will be amazing, right? Because if you're producing like graphics for like advertisements or anything like that, that stuff's going to get way better, I think, by the end of the year.
Yeah, it is interesting because I feel the same way about DALL-E 3, right? Like, I've gotten to a point now where I can look at an image and go, okay, I can tell that was a DALL-E 3. I can tell that was Midjourney. I mean, I don't know if normal people who aren't like as immersed in AI can see that or not. It's hard for me to say, right? Like, I'm such in my own bubble that I don't know if other people notice that too. But DALL-E creates very similar images. Like, the color palettes on them always kind of look like the same to me. Same with Midjourney. That's got like this stylistic thing where I look at it and go, okay, I can tell that was Midjourney. But I think, like you said, I think the updates throughout this year are going to be a little bit more nuanced, marginal updates, right? They're going to be smaller updates because we've already got these AI models for images specifically that can create ultra realistic images, right? Where else do you go? I think the focus now is less on realism and more on prompt adherence, right? Midjourney is really, really great at realism. DALL-E still sucks at realism. DALL-E is really, really good at prompt adherence. You can throw a whole bunch of elements into the prompt. I want a dragon wearing a fedora, eating nachos, watching MTV, and the words party time on the screen, and it will get all of those elements into a single image. Midjourney can't do that, right? So I think what we're probably going to see is like all of these models kind of combining to a point where like nobody can tell whether it was Midjourney or DALL-E or Stable Diffusion because Midjourney focused on prompt adherence and improves that. DALL-E focuses on realism and, more dynamic color palettes and optimizes for that. And we're going to get to a point where we don't know what model generated what because everything is just good. As far as video, I mean, we saw Sora. OpenAI has made it sound like we might see Sora sometime by the end of the year. We might actually get our hands on it. We were just talking a minute ago about Adobe rolling in Sora to Adobe Premiere. So, I think with Adobe Premiere, we might start to get some access to Sora and some of those capabilities in there. So that's going to improve, which means more realism in video, longer prompt generation with video. Yeah, I think that's really what we're going to see. I think the other area that we're going to see continued massive leaps is in text to 3D art, right? For for creating like little animated characters, or for creating game assets, or things like that, right? You've got Spline 3D, and you've got CSM, Common Sense Machines, and you've got Meshy. There's all of these tools that are like getting really, really good at like text to 3D object. And I feel like a lot of companies are kind of focusing in there right now. Like even Midjourney said that they think their next sort of frontier is going to be 3D generation. We'll get back to the show in just a moment, but first, here's a word from HubSpot. Curious about what the future of productivity looks like? HubSpot's AI tools make quick work of expediting content creation, optimizing workflows, and elevating data analysis. Personally, I'm really impressed by the AI website generator. You can create a web page just from a few simple prompts. That's mind-blowing. And the facts speak for themselves. Over 85% of marketers and sales professionals agree that AI enhances content quality and prospecting efforts. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for free by clicking the link in the description below. Now back to the show.
Going back to video for a second, I think that, I'm sure we're going to see Sora this year. Maybe when we see Sora and then like even like a small upgrade to it, like something better than the demo, like in the public's hands, which is going to be amazing. And I think by the end of the year, I think there's a chance that we'll actually see like a viral short film, like something like 5 minutes, 10 minutes long, that's entirely made with something like Sora. Yeah, I think that's gonna be like the turning point of like, oh, like wow, because it's almost there now. Like if something like Sora was out there, I'm pretty sure somebody could make something that went really viral. And I think you might even see, because we've been talking about like there's all these great new AI video tools coming out, but like what's the use case? I do feel like there'll be something, almost kind of like how Instagram took off because of filters. I do feel like there's some kind of new app, whether it comes this year or next, or I feel like there's something on the horizon that we don't even know what it is yet, but some kind of social app that will integrate these AI video tools. And we're like, oh yeah, of course. Why didn't I think of that? Like, I think something like that bigger than TikTok is coming using AI, probably AI video.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder what a social media app would look like in that realm, because it's like,
yeah.
Is it going to be just a bunch of AI videos and people are scrolling a feed of AI videos?
I guess the challenge right now is like the filters were free. A lot of this stuff is quite expensive to actually do right now. So like you would have to pay for the generation of the video, I guess is the one challenge you probably would have right now. But so that might make it where like it's more likely to happen next year when costs come down or something. But it does feel to me like, okay, we haven't had a big social app in a while. We had that kind of like, what was that one called, Gas or whatever, which was like this guy kind of like generated this out of nowhere, then sold it to Reddit, I think, really fast. And,
I don't remember that one.
And it was like half a joke.
Yeah.
And then he sold it for like a ton of money, like I don't know, like over 50 million or something. And apparently, like I think he told Sean Puri from My First Million and a few others like that he was going to do it before he did it, and he just did it. But there hasn't been any other big social apps, since then that have taken off. And it feels like, okay, so AI video probably is going to enable something really cool there.
Yeah. I mean, right now, like AirChat is sort of a social app. I mean, it came out like a year ago, but they rebuilt it. Now it's sort of re-emerging. I think that's mostly emerging just because it's got Naval's name on it and people flock to Naval.
Yeah, but Naval is saying it's because of AI partially. He is saying because he believes, which is funny. He used to say that text was like the best, and then now he is switching to saying like, yeah, it's all going to be audio, and it's all going to be audio, and that's why I'm doing AirChat. And he apparently he is saying that one of the reasons is he's now kind of reevaluating things because of AI and realizing, with all these new AI tools, you're going to be talking to your AI, and then you're going to be talking to people that you want to, real people you want to talk to as well. And so like voice is gonna be the main, medium there.
Yeah. I know we're sort of on a little tangent right now, but when it comes to AirChat, the thing that I like about it is that you can't type. You can't open it up and type a response to somebody. You have to speak. And the thing that makes that cool is it sort of solves the problems that X has right now with a lot of bots, right? Right now, you can't really bot it because you've got to talk to it unless you're using a really, really sophisticated sort of like 11 Labs combo where it's spitting out real voices. And like, I don't think anybody's that advanced with it yet. But you also don't get like all the trolling and all the negativity, because when somebody actually speaks to you face to face, they're not going to be as negative and as much of a dick basically as they might be on something like X.
Did you ever use Clubhouse? Like back
a little bit, yeah.
COVID? Yeah. So I mean, Clubhouse was like blowing up, especially in Silicon Valley. Like everybody was on it, and and it started off great, and then it went downhill. And it's like, because it's really hard to moderate these things. Like, yeah, at first everybody's nice, but then you got people talking about political things or whatever, and like people from the opposite side join, and like it gets really hateful, and it just and then those kind of channels became the most popular channels because there's more engagement there,
right?
And so I do wonder what AirChat's doing to kind of make sure they don't have that same problem.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm new. I've only been on it for 48 hours as of this recording. So, but anyway, we can move off that tangent for right now. So let's next question. This one comes from Craze in the Dark, who's actually somebody that works for me. His name's John. He's my creative director. But he asked this question. He said, "How can governments and corporations adjust to a potential massive AI job replacement? Will our economic systems change forever?" Real easy softball question.
Okay, next question. I do have like really mixed feelings here because in terms of will it change our economic systems forever? I think that one is so hard to predict. Like anybody who says that they have that they know what's going to happen there is lying or deluding themselves, because AI introduces so many new variables into the world that it's so hard to know. Like, okay, GPT-5 is going to come out. Is it 10% better, 50%? What does that mean? What does that mean for the economy? What does that mean for how people work? Will these systems stop improving as fast as they are now, like in 3 years, because we hit some kind of limitations? Or will they just start, growing exponentially? And so it's really hard to know. But, in the future, if AI can do most work, that definitely opens huge questions of like, what's the purpose of the government?
Yeah.
Like, what happens when AI gets incredibly smart and starts telling us that our government's messed up? What do we do then?
Yeah. We elect an AI to run our government, obviously.
Do we ask the AI how we should be structuring our government based on the, and how do politicians respond to that? Do they decide, okay, we have to ban AI now? That's probably what would happen. So I think no one knows, because it's like right now, capitalism is, in my opinion, the best system we have. It's definitely not perfect. Like everyone knows that. And so in the future, when AI does the work, people are going to have to find meaning in other ways. And also, how does money work then? I think Mark Andreessen talked about this recently, where he believes that AI will dramatically bring down the cost of many things, right? And then there will be certain niche products or maybe like real life experiences that still cost a lot of money, right? Like going somewhere and having some amazing experience, or having a human create something that could still be expensive.
I think that's giving companies too much credit. I think it's giving companies too much credit, because what we've seen so far, right? Like there's so many companies that are built on the back of GPT-3, GPT-4. And over the last several months, so many of these APIs have lowered their costs. Have the companies that we're paying our monthly fees to lowered their costs, or just pocketed extra profits?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so it depends on how good AI gets. So like that's when there's like a handful of competitors. But if you have like 1,000 competitors and they're all competing on price because AI has made things so much easier to build, a lot of prices should go down over time. But yeah, you're right. I mean, iPhone's still incredibly expensive. Other things that we buy are still incredibly expensive. So you're correct there. I'm not sure, but also at the same time, I don't really, like universal basic income, which I believe Sam Altman originally was one of the people who kind of like did an experiment with that, where they gave people money. I believe they gave people money in Oakland. They ran that experiment, and I can't remember the results, but I think it was kind of mixed, where it's like, some people just end up kind of just like playing video games.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, is that what you want in your society? Like, I don't know. Like maybe there's, maybe some portion of people, that is what they do, and then they go off and do some productive things, hopefully.
I think everybody worries about the WALL-E scenario, right? Where everybody's just kind of sitting in their chairs, floating around, getting fat, drinking Slurpees, and watching movies or playing video games all day.
But recently there's been this big, uptick in like people getting healthy, at least in like Silicon Valley circles and stuff. And even me, I lost a bunch of weight, and I've been using AI even to give me advice on like how to go to the gym and like how to work out and gain muscle and all this stuff. And so people were like, so we thought it was gonna be like a WALL-E and everyone's super fat, but it's gonna be like a WALL-E and everyone's super jacked.
Yeah.
They got all this free time, and AI's helped them, teach them how to be healthy. We have all these new drugs that make you healthier and stuff. And so it might be like that, like a WALL-E, but we're all jacked. So I don't know, but my gut feeling is that there will always be like the capitalism will just evolve. Like it's not going to disappear anytime soon. In 1,000 years or, whatever, who knows? Maybe we're in Star Trek land, but no time that soon.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people underestimate humans, especially when we're talking about AI. I feel like humans will figure out new ways to add value to the world.
Yeah.
Right. Right now, one of the ways humans add value to the world is doing the actual construction, building the stuff, doing the actual work that needs to get done. But I do think in a sort of post-AI world, maybe call it a post-AGI world where robots and AI can handle a lot of this stuff for us, I still think humans are going to figure out new ways to add value. We just don't know what that looks like yet. Also, questions like this about how can governments and corporations adjust. My thoughts on that are not necessarily that corporations and governments need to adjust. It's that we need to adjust. The people, the general population, the public should be adjusting. What we're seeing right now, I think, is one of the greatest opportunities in anybody's lifetime to quickly build and iterate and optimize and create something yourself that adds value to the world. So maybe you're going to lose your job at Walmart as a checker because, you can just walk out now, but you also just have the opportunity to use AI to help you create a business that can generate value and income for you. So, we're in this very empowering point in time where I don't think we should be going, what can governments and corporations do to protect us from AI? And we should be thinking, what can I do with AI so that I'm not that reliant on corporations and government? I think we need to have a sort of paradigm shift. We need to think differently, right? Not trying to quote Apple here, but we do need to think differently in that we need to not look at corporations and government to solve these problems for us. We need to look at how can we be empowered by this new technology so that we aren't reliant on government and corporations.
Yeah, I agree. Like everyone has a, free assistant, in their pocket now, they used to have a computer. Now they have an actual assistant, and that assistant's going to get more and more intelligent. So, that's that's probably how you'll actually see changes in government and corporations is like from the bottom up, of people learning this stuff and then and changing the government. And I'm pretty encouraged there. Like I think AI, like the people who adopt AI, they're going to become enhanced in a way, and they're going to have an outsized impact on the world, which should give them a better chance of actually influencing the government or becoming part of the government, helping restructure things.
I mean, the question of will our economic systems change forever? I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
How it's going to change, I don't think we know yet. I don't think anybody is going to be really good at predicting that in this moment in time right now. But definitely, I think the economic system is going to change. I mean, we're already seeing it change, right? People are trying to figure out ways to bypass the existing financial systems and banking systems through crypto and things like that. It's going to continue to evolve that way, no matter how much people sort of fight that stuff. I do think it's going to evolve towards that more decentralized, crypto-centric finance in the future. But yeah, definitely the economic system is going to change forever. I can't make a prediction on how yet.
Yeah.
So the next question here is from Universa AI Podcast. Their question is, do you think open source community can band together and create an AGI that can compete with the big corporations? So really, I think the main question is can open source build AI models that can compete with an OpenAI, with a Microsoft, with a Google, with an Anthropic, with companies that have millions, potentially billions of dollars backing them with compute power?
Yeah, I think we've talked about this a little bit before. I'm not sure if we put it out there, but I personally really hope so. Like really, really hope so. But I am skeptical. I do feel that OpenAI is further ahead than people realize. I think OpenAI is probably about 1 to 2 years ahead. And when GPT-5 comes out, I think that's going to become apparent. Maybe I'm wrong, delusional, but that's my current belief. And, it feels like, open source is catching up to GPT-4, but if GPT-5 is like 2 years ahead of that,
right?
It's like, well, then maybe they'll always be in it. And then at some point when AI starts self-improving, let's say by GPT-6, that it's actually kind of improving itself a little bit too by itself, you could get in this exponential growth of the AI, where then whoever gets there first, or the first 2 or 3 companies that get there first, it gets better so fast that, sure, there'll be like cool open source models, for individuals, but maybe the most powerful stuff will always be in like 2 or 3 companies' hands, unfortunately. And then there's the question of like, who gets to use it? Do the government say like, holy crap, this is so powerful, it changes the entire world, and we have to like really, treat it like, nuclear bombs or something. And I really hope that's not what happens.
Yeah. So when it comes to open source, obviously the biggest bottleneck is compute, right? So like, you look at companies like Google, like Microsoft, like Anthropic, like Mixtral, some of these companies that are building these large language models, they have millions, and in some of these scenarios, billions of dollars of investment, which they could use on GPUs to train these models. Even the open source community, even all of the large language models that are out there in the open source world right now, probably costed millions of dollars to train on, right? So you still need one of these big companies like a Meta, like a Mistral, that has all of this financial availability to train these models, even for the open source to be successful, right? So I don't know if open source, at least not in the near term, I don't know if it can be successful without the big corporations deciding to get involved and help train these models. Because the open source world of LLMs right now probably wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for Meta dropping Llama 2, which everybody's sort of kind of fine-tuned and built off the back of that, right? So it's like, I don't know. At the end of the day, open source is amazing, and we want it to grow. We want more people tackling problems and more people trying to figure out how to make these models better is a better thing than less people working on these models.
Right.
But at the same time, you do need millions of dollars to train one of these models right now, even if it is open source.
Yeah, and in the future, like when we're talking about GPT-5 or GPT-6 level models, you're probably talking about way more than that. I mean, I think the other day Google came out and said that, over the next, I don't know if they said next 5 to 10 years, that they'll probably end up spending like $100 billion on AI development.
And that news came right after Microsoft said that them and OpenAI are partnering on a $100 billion data center, right?
Yeah.
So basically, OpenAI and Microsoft said, we're going to partner on a $100 billion data center filled with GPUs so we can train better and better models. Recently, the CEO of DeepMind, Demis Hassabis, came out and said, in response to Microsoft building this $100 billion data center, that over the next 5 to 10 years, Google's going to spend at least that on their data centers. So that was like him sort of responding to the fact that Microsoft and OpenAI were building this $100 billion data center. But Meta said, what did they say? Do you remember the exact number Meta said? I think they said they have something like 600,000 H100, something insane like that.
Yeah, something. I think a chart came out showing like they have the most or something.
Yeah, so Meta has 350,000 H100s right now.
Oh my gosh.
But Mark Zuckerberg did make a comment recently saying they have the equivalent of 600,000 H100s, whatever that means.
Yeah.
So, I don't really feel like an underground dude in his basement is going to train a model that's going to compete with a GPT-4. They just don't have the compute availability to do that. At least not in this point in time.
Yeah.
This question comes from AI Leaks and News. What is one thing you are confident we won't see in the next 12 months?
I don't know if I could be confident about anything in the next 12 months. I mean, that's the crazy thing is like it's really hard to know where where OpenAI is privately, like where their model is at. I don't expect to see AGI in the next 12 months or artificial superintelligence or anything like that. And partially because I think we're probably limited by the current compute. But that's about it.
Yeah. I mean, I have the same thoughts. Like almost every time I've tried to predict something that won't happen, I've been wrong, right? Like
look at AI video, right?
Yeah. I've made predictions about how far AI video is going to come, how fast. I was totally wrong on my prediction. And what I thought wasn't coming for years came months later. Right.
I should find my tweet. I was very optimistic about AI video. Like I was putting out AI video threads for a long time, talking about how it was, going to really change Hollywood and whatnot. But yeah, it's hard to know. Like, AI video, it could have taken years, but now it looks like it's actually going to be amazing in the next 6 months.
Yeah.
So there's not much that I would be willing to like confidently predict. In 12 months.
I'm with you. I think AGI and ASI are probably the two things I'm fairly confident we're not going to see within 12 months. Definitely not ASI, but Most likely not AGI either.
Yeah, I'm fairly confident that AI will not replace all jobs in 12 months. They will not be that good.
We won't have Skynet taking over the world within 12 months.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably. I like how you said probably not. Not definitely not.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, probably not. I think I saw something the other day where one of the AI systems in China with the government, it's actually called Skynet.
Yeah, I've a few people have like named their company Sky. I've seen a couple different Skynet companies, and I'm like,
yeah,
you do realize like Skynet was the bad guy, right?
Yeah. I think they thought it was humorous or something, but like it's literally like China's AI system that like monitors the public.
Yeah. All right. So this one comes from Akshay Lazaris, and I'm sorry if I butchered that name, but he says, I'd love to hear you discuss the future of tech. For example, will UI switching from GUIs, graphical user interfaces, to voice? Do we see there being a consolidation of all application tech by cloud-based hyperscalers? What is the role of startups as data resides with these hyperscalers? Well, let's start with the first part of the question. Like, what do you think the sort of future of these user interfaces are? Like less graphical user interface, more voice? What are your thoughts there?
I think both. I think you'll have both. I mean, I think you'll have, Minority Report kind of thing where you got like these visual, systems that you can interact with and they get really intelligent. And yeah, of course, you'll be able to also use voice to interact with it as well. Kind of like Her and other movies, right? We're
already kind of doing that, right? Like that was sort of the point of Siri, right? That was sort of the point of Amazon Alexa. So we already kind of have that. They're just kind of dumb AIs right now. They're not very great AIs, but we've already had that for a while now. So I'm going to speak for myself here. When it comes to like speaking out loud to some of these apps, I feel very awkward doing that in public, right? Like I've got these Meta Ray-Ban sunglasses that have Llama 2 built into them. I feel awkward as hell in public asking questions to my sunglasses, right? Because you go, hey, Meta, and then and that's like saying, hey, Siri, right? That's what starts the prompt so I can start talking to these sunglasses. I feel ridiculous in public saying, hey, Meta, and then talking to sunglasses. I feel like I'd feel the same way with an AI pin, right? The humane pin, pressing a button and then speaking out loud. Like if I'm sitting in a coffee shop or a library or somewhere that tends to be a more quiet place, I'm definitely not using the voice interface, right? But even just being out in public, like if I'm walking through my supermarket and there's other people around, I feel like a crazy person talking to my gadgets,
Yeah, I mean, that might be an age thing too, right? Like
Could be.
I think that like young people may, AI gets better and better. They may just be totally used to it. Like, of course I'm talking to it. Why would I, it's like my son with like Siri and stuff. He doesn't understand the world without that.
That's true. Yeah.
And he also just thinks Siri's so dumb. So as soon as it gets better, I think he's going to love interacting with it however he can, including being outside. But yeah, I also would feel very weird, like talking to, AI outside, especially here in Japan. People staring at me like I'm a psycho. Like, what's this guy doing?
I mean, if really the question is essentially like, yeah, we've got huge incumbents that are sort of running everything right now. How does anybody compete?
I personally think it's a big open question. Like, when OpenAI has AGI, what do startups do? But I think there'll always be like, I don't think OpenAI is going to want to build every single use case and every single kind of product. They're wanting to build the technology and have other people build on top of it. And I think if they tried to do everything, they're going to run into like really major like regulation problems, if I had to guess. So I think I don't like regulation, but that might be one area where like regulation actually comes to save the day, because I do think the big tech companies are not going to try to do everything. They're going to try to build the best AI technology, and then on top of that, there'll be so many things for startups to build.
Yeah, and really, if the question is like, how do they compete? Honestly, our Greg Isenberg episode is literally that entire topic of like, when you have these big incumbent companies, the Googles, Microsofts, Amazons, all these companies out there, how do these little companies compete? Well, that's exactly what we talked about with Greg. And Greg was talking about, well, you got to create brand, you've got to create community, you've got to, what are you going to do to stand out, right? I just listened back to that episode when it went live, and Greg was saying things like, people choose sides, right? They're like, I'm an Apple guy, I'm a PC guy, I'm a Nike guy, Adidas guy, Puma guy, whatever, right? Like people sort of gravitate towards brands and attach their identity to brands. And a lot of times they're the brands that have good community connected to them, right? So that is, in my opinion, and Greg's opinion, and it's my opinion because I heard Greg give me this opinion. But that's how you stand out, is through brand, through community, through those things that differentiate you, right? People don't necessarily want to work with Google where they're just like a number in a giant database of 1 million people. But I use, for instance, Beehive for my AI newsletter, right? And with Beehive, I've talked to the founders. They actually respond to people on X. They're still a smaller, nimble company with community around them where everybody that uses Beehive sort of loves talking about it and recommends other people to go use Beehive. And they've got that community element, that brand element, and there's a narrative that's sort of formed of this like ConvertKit versus Beehive narrative, right? And so you've got that kind of thing going on where people might like pick their sides, and the reason they'll pick a side is they connect with the community, they connect with the brand that company built. And so I think, as Greg said, that's how they stand out. And, I totally agree with that opinion.
Yeah. And I think, AI will only like make that even more so, right? Like where people want more human connection there, right? Like, I know the founders, or like, the people in the community, I love them. And I feel like they actually like listen to what I say. And this is like one reason to do like Q&A like this, right? Like is to actually like, we're doing the show, but also, it's for other people, and we're interacting with those people versus just, it's just what me and Matt say. Like in startups in general, beyond community, I mean, I think, AI is going to there's going to be so many opportunities for startups, and I don't believe that like 3 companies are going to control everything. There's so many there's so many problems to be solved in the world, and it's not going to be 2 or 3 companies that solve all of them. Like there will always be new opportunities.
I think if it does become 3 companies trying to do it all, governments will intervene and be like, no, you can't have this much power. I think that's where it'll go.
Yeah. Okay, this one comes from my Twitter feed. Comes from Jason Vanish. Hope I'm saying that correctly. Jason's always been really awesome on my Twitter and doing a lot of good comments on my Twitter. How much better can LLMs get? At some point, there aren't larger and larger training data sets, are there? At this point, then, do we hit an AI plateau, or are there different methods that could leapfrog LLMs like the computer industry had computing breakthroughs from the 70s to 90s? I mean, I think with this one, like, we're definitely like speculating because like neither one of us are like the smartest AI engineers in the world or something. Like I code.
Yeah, I mean, you can just end in that sentence as neither of us are really the smartest.
Well, yeah. There was an interview though, I think with like Sam Altman and Ilya, maybe, I don't know, maybe it was like 6 months ago, something like that, where, they said that with existing data in the world, with video and audio and other things that we're just now starting to train on, that there's a pretty clear path to major improvements for the next 3 to 5 years, right? And so if that's the case, we're probably talking about like GPT-6, GPT-7 before you need any kind of breakthroughs.
Yeah.
And if GPT-5 is good as they're saying, I mean, I think by GPT-6, 7, we're talking about like work looking very, very different.
Right.
So I think the next 3 to 5 years, there's already enough data for the world to be entirely transformed, mostly in positive ways. And then beyond that, I'm sure we will need more breakthroughs at some point. And there's a big open question too that people, that a lot of engineers are debating is like with synthetic data, right? Like, is synthetic data actually useful? Like data that the AI helps generate? Can you then train on that new data? It's synthetic data, and I think it's not entirely clear yet, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
But if synthetic data works, well then, we'll probably never run out of data to be training on.
Yeah. And I mean, everything we're talking about at this point is very sort of theoretical, but at some point, I don't think humans need to continue to improve on training the large language models. Like once we hit a point of, AGI, we get to a point where the models figure out what they need to train on next and figure out how to self-improve and sort of get better and better. I think there is going to be sort of a model that's kind of like the last model that humans needed to train. And then the models beyond that become the models where the AI is sort of a self-improving model, where it gets better and better and better on its own, right? It does its own it's reinforcement learning through AI feedback instead of reinforcement learning through human feedback at some point, right?
Sure.
To some degree, we have that right now, right? Like that's kind of how GANs, generative adversarial networks, work, where you have an AI that's a discriminator, and then you have the AI that's the generator, and the AI that's the generator tries to generate something that fools the AI that's the discriminator, and they go back and forth until the discriminator is actually fooled by what the generator made. I think we're going to see that kind of thing get more and more prominent with large language models, where it gets to a point where it's giving itself its own feedback and getting better and better and better. But then I also think there's a phase after large language models where we start talking more about the embodied AI, right? Like we were looking at the Boston Dynamics robot. We've talked about the Figure 1 robot. We've got Tesla Optimus. All of these are robots that, they're going to have AI injected into them. And when we start putting AI into some of these robots, some of these machines, well, now they have more stuff they need to learn on. They need to learn on how to interact with the physical world. And when my arm moves like this, what's the result? When my arm moves like this, and now it's starting to get trained more on the domain knowledge of just how to operate this robot. So I think there's going to be this shift to now we need to train these LLMs to work with the specific use case, like embodied robots, like, going into drones or whatever we use it on next. And they need to sort of train on the domain knowledge to operate the vehicle that's now embodying that AI, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I think a big open question too is like, can AI start solving real world problems too? Like, can it help, cure cancer? Can it help us figure out how to make the robots better?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because if that's the case, then we'll probably get to this kind of exponential point where things will just keep getting improving. And then, something that seemed like such a small little breakthrough, with GPT-1 and with Transformer, the concept of transformers. Yeah, it could take us all the way. I think that's an open question. We don't know. It could be that like just a ton of data is all we needed.
A ton of data and a ton of GPUs to process it.
Yep. Also, I think, LLMs are going to be just like one part of the equation too, like you said, the robots. But also my understanding is that, the rumors were that OpenAI has created this thing called QStar, which is supposed to be some kind of logic engine. I don't think there's any details been revealed about that. Is that just like some kind of other LLM? I don't know. But so in theory, you would have like the LLM, then having some kind of like a logic engine attached on top of it. So in the future, these systems could get really complicated, but for like regular people, you won't know any of that's going on.
Well, if you ask Yann LeCun, right? He's the lead AI over at Meta, also worked with Jeffrey Hinton, one of the godfathers of AI, as they call them.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't believe large language models will ever achieve AGI. He thinks that the sort of technology underneath large language models just will never get to that point of AGI. And over at Meta, they're developing something they call VJEPA, which stands for Video Joint Embedding Predictive Architecture. But basically, it's a way for like the AI models to see and understand the world and sort of train themselves by actually doing and getting a response. And he believes this is what will actually lead to AGI and not necessarily the large language models that everybody's familiar with today.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There might be a point where large language models, there is like a point of diminishing returns where they just don't get any better. But I still think there's a lot of models that can replace large language models that continue to improve what the capabilities are.
Yeah, I don't know, but I know he's highly respected, and obviously he knows more about this technology than I do, but he's also made some predictions with towards GPT-4 and things like that didn't seem that accurate. He was really skeptical on how good GPT-4 was going to be and stuff like that. And now, with the rumors about GPT-5, if they turn out to be true, well, then obviously OpenAI is doing something that he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
Right. And so we don't know what that is. In his Sam Altman bullshitting? Well, I don't think so. And the other day, Sam Altman said that, people who are ignoring, where things are going to be going with GPT-5, I think he said something like, we're going to steamroll you. Is what he said, which is kind of shocking. It was and he delivered it in this kind of really peaceful, nice way. But it was we're going to steamroll you. And so I think they have something. I think it's going to be shocking, but who knows? Who knows what what's going to be the best way to do this in the future?
Yeah, I actually think that government is going to be a huge bottleneck over time, right? I think I don't want to get political with this, but I do think that the government is going to be a bottleneck to progress. And the reason I say that is because I was recently listening to a conversation with Ray Kurzweil and Jeffrey Hinton, right? And they were talking about these AI models being essentially like the best correlation machines on the planet. They can find correlations between seemingly unrelated things that humans could never spot. And that's the reason why these large language models will likely find the cures to various cancers and diseases and possibly solve climate change and world hunger and all of this stuff, right? They'll find
but
correlations.
They're also very good at finding corruption.
That's true.
Which, I had a viral tweet on this like maybe a year ago where I talked about that. I was like, I think it's going to be a big thing where you can actually see where all the money is moving in the government. Yeah. And that humans cannot process this. And it's a very easy way to like be corrupt and hide that is like through moving money around in like really sneaky ways. And,
which is another thing AI, blockchain sort of solves as well. But, we don't have to go
AI
there.
will be able to like look at that and go like, oh yeah, this person's doing this. This is why they're doing it. This is why they, sign this into law. And so, I could definitely see government people being very like not wanting that to come out.
Yeah. Well, and, where I was going with the government being the bottleneck is, I think these large language models will likely find cures for cancer, solutions for climate change, ways to end hunger in parts of the world that need it. But I think government is going to get in the way of making what the AI finds a reality, right? Like when there's new drugs that come to market, how long does it take for the drug to go through animal trials and then human trials and then, all of the steps before the drug finally gets on the market for humans to use, right? I think AI will probably find a lot of solutions to a lot of problems, and then the government's red tape is going to be what slows down these solutions actually becoming live to the world.
Yeah, I mean that's why there's movements like EAC and things like that, right? Is they are really afraid of that. It's like I think people talked about like we could have solved a lot of our energy problems with like nuclear power. Right. But then regulation like stopped that from happening, right? And I think France is one of the big success stories where they adopted nuclear power and they haven't had energy problems like a lot of other countries have. And so there's a lot of fear around that. But then the challenge is like, EAC does kind of go so extreme that they might end up bringing on some of the regulation, right? Because it's like, just let's go as hard as we can, as fast as we can. And then the government kind of freaks out about that too. So it's really hard to know like how to get the government to embrace this technology. I'm hoping they will. I mean, I think it's like the U.S. winning at the internet. Like the U.S. needs to win at AI too in order to kind of set the stage for the next 100 years of the world, right? And if we don't, whoever wins that, China or whoever, Russia, whoever, they then get to set the stage for the next, chapter of humanity.
It's the new space race.
Yeah, I think it's bigger than that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is really interesting to think about it from that perspective, too, because, like, the U.S. probably wants to be the country that finds the cure for cancer, but is the government going to, is the government going to put up a bunch of red tape and slow that down? I don't know, yet to be seen.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a sort of necessary overhaul coming because with this AI world that we're entering into, I do feel like we need stuff to happen faster so that we can let the solutions that these tools provide the solutions.
I think ideally that's what we do. Like as these systems become incredibly intelligent, they can process more data than humans can. We should be asking them like, okay, how can we reorganize this part of the government to be more efficient and actually get more things done and help more people, bring more people out of poverty and things like this. That's what I hope for. I mean, that's even one reason I wanted to do the show with you. That's why I tweet is I'm really hopeful for what this technology can do for humanity if we don't all get in the way. Right.
I think that's a perfect spot to wrap this one up. If anybody is watching on YouTube, let us know in the comments if you like this style of episode, if you want us to do more Q&A and you like just the sort of us giving thoughts on your questions, because if you like this, we'll make more episodes like this for you. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening to this. It really helps us out to get more listeners and viewers on the show. So appreciate that. And thank you so much for tuning in today. We'll see you in the next episode.